Talking Point platform. TTPTB. Oh yeah. Unale we pledge with love and loyalty to we sweet, sweet mama salute. Now we all come together as well on. For tomorrow, now we go make salute.
The views from the ordinary people.
We set the agenda. We bring you seamless broadcast.
We cover the happenings.
We give you the angles on the screen.
We cover the events.
We tell the story. We produce the shows.
We commission and ensure the stories are delivered.
We bring you all actions and excitement in sports.
We get our inspiration from you because you have chosen us as the nation's most trusted voice. AYV, the home of all things credible, factual, and of course, all times balanced news.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV television and listening to us on Radio 101.7 FM. Now, this morning in the first segment, His Excellency President Dr. Julius Maada in 2022 launched the government white paper on the review of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone, accepting major recommendations and announcing the implementation of some of them already. So, to discuss the importance of reviewing the 1991 Constitution and what is expected, we have Alpha Sise, the Deputy Minister of Justice, in the studio here. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
And also, we're expecting Lawyer Rashid Dumboya, who's the Executive Director for Legal Link. But back to you, Deputy Minister. So, this is 2024, 33 years later. Since we had the 1991 Constitution, which is still guiding us as a country. That's over 3 decades now. And it is clear or evident that over time, we've seen a lot of changes in the country with regards government, with regards the needs and aspirations of citizens as well. And what has also been resounding for so long now is that there have been calls to have the 1991 Constitution reviewed, starting off with the Lome Peace Agreement, subsequently its ratification in 1999, and specifically Article 10, which called for its review, and subsequently the TRC report some 20 years ago also recommended that we have, the Constitution, a new Constitution that would actually lay the foundation for democracy and open society wherein citizens would be protected by the law. We've also seen attempts made to review the 1991 Constitution in Sierra Leone here, starting off with the Peter Talker review, established or set up, the commission set up, the committee set up in 2007, delivering its reports in 2008, subsequently under President Anes Baikoma as well, seeing the 2013 Commissioner Review Committee, which delivered its report in 2017, and a subsequent government-wide paper as well, which only or struck out 100 recommendations, about 100 out of the 134 that were submitted. Now we've seen another attempt 2 years ago, 2022, having President Julius Maada launch the government, the white paper as well, calling for a review of the 1991 Constitution. What would you say are the primary reasons for this new initiative, in getting the Constitution, the 1991 Constitution reviewed?
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. It's really great to be here and to speak to you and to the public about this very, very important process that has significant impact on our democratic and governance architecture in this country. And I'm glad that you really provided a detailed background of the journey that we have walked in this process. This process goes, more than 20 years. ago, as you mentioned, from the Lome Peace Accord and all of the steps that you have outlined already. You know, we see this just as we see the running of a relay, where you have continuity, a process that was started several years ago by the late President Kaba of blessed memory, and then, continued by President Nkrumah, and then now being taken to completion by His Excellency President Bio. So it's really like running a relay and handing baton from one person to another, But this time round, the plan is not to hand that baton to another leadership. The plan is to really get this process to conclusion. You will all recall that when President Bio campaigned ahead of the 2018 election, this was a manifesto promise. In addition to several other things that had been in the pipeline for quite some time, which he promised to take to completion. We have seen the abolition of the death penalty. We now see efforts to complete the process of enacting the revised Criminal Procedure Act. We have seen the enactment of the GIWI Act. And these were all processes that, you can say, go over 20 years ago, but, which he has decided to take to completion. And so that is how we see the constitutional review process. We think there's been a lot of evolution in governance and the kinds of people who participate in governance. And the foundation that was laid more than 20 years ago for a revised constitution that will really communicate or articulate the aspirations of the general public for a democratic society is what we have in this process. And that is the reason why President Bio really wants to take this process to completion now. As you mentioned, of course, there have been two white papers, one in 2017 under the government of former President Nkrumah, and then the second one under the government of President Bio. We don't see these as contrasting white papers. We see the second white paper as we say as an upgrade of the first white paper, as an effort to make the revised constitution even more progressive, and something that the people of Sierra Leone will really have faith in, and that is what we're trying to do as a government.
What key areas of the constitution do you believe need urgent reform to address, contemporary governance challenges?
Well, the point is that, I'm glad that my brother and colleague Rashid is here. We both find ourselves in the same space, as human rights practitioners. And so, for me, of course, from a personal standpoint, and that's one. And then, of course, from the government's own perspective, having a more progressive human rights chapter in our constitution is very, very important. And that is really one of the recommendations that came out of the Justice Kawan Constitutional Review Committee. Of course, there have been concerns about, whether it is time to really make the socio-economic rights found in Chapter 2 of the Constitution under the fundamental principles of state policy in Chapter 14, whether it makes sense to make those justiciable. I'm sure it's a discussion that we'll have here. But moving to Chapter 3 itself, which is the human rights section of our Constitution, we now have recommendations that are more progressive, and some will be changing entire phrases. Some will be just changing certain words, which are important. For example, in the current Constitution, we have a provision that talks about the government taking steps to discourage discrimination based on sex, race, gender, etc. Mm-hmm. But now, a revised constitution recommends that you change the word discourage to prohibit. That is even more instructive, And of course, we've all celebrated the enactment of the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment law that we have in Sierra Leone. That's legislation. But that was actually one of the recommendations made by the Kawan Constitutional Review Committee, and which the government thinks, as well as women's groups think, that in addition to the legislation, we still should have it in the Constitution. It's one of those proposals accepted by the government. So really, this is having a progressive constitution that will provide protection for all of us.
Before Jones comes in, I'll come over to you, Rashid. On the 12th May 2024, just last month, we asked our Facebook audience on what they think is the most significant proposed amendment to the 1991 Constitution. But we had 112 votes. 34 voted implementing measures to enhance transparency and accountability in government. 26 voted reforming electoral laws and processes to promote free and fair elections. 24 voted ensuring greater protection of human rights and civil liberties. 15 voted strengthening the separation of powers between branches of government, and 13 voted addressing issues of decentralization and local governance. Well, the poll only allowed 5 options to be voted on, but there was a sixth, which is restructuring the powers of the executive. From your point, what are the most critical issues that you know a reviewed constitution needs to address in Sierra Leone?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for being here so late a little. I'm happy to share the platform with my minister, Deputy Minister of Justice, a colleague, and of course my learned senior. It's one of the appointments I'm very grateful, and I thank the president. He's one man who has done a lot of things for Sierra Leone. Even when he was overseas, was helping greatly in terms of accountability and justice reform issues. And I followed him up greatly. He came back and worked at the US Embassy, helping on democracy and rule of law issues as well. So I'm not surprised that he is not still here today as Deputy Minister of Justice. Congratulations once again, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm happy that you guys invited me to have this discussion. It's something we have been craving for, and we have been a part on this issue for quite a long time now. All right. So let me start first of all by saying, reviewing a constitution. So I'll come to your question. All right. Reviewing a constitution has not been a new phenomenon in Sierra Leone. All right. It dates as far back as 1924. We had a review. We had filed our first constitution then. We have 1971, 51, 61. We have 71. We have 78. We have 1991, which we are currently using. And so it's not a new phenomenon. Okay? And it's good for countries at some point to pause and see if they can look at the ground norm, the highest law, and try to reform it to reflect the current dynamics of governance and human rights protection. So in 2002, efforts were made to now address these gaps in this current constitution 91. So under the then President Alhaji Tijan Kabale of late memory, all right, the Tatoka Commission. So a comprehensive attempt was made to, checkmate the excesses in this current constitution. It failed, all right, in a way. And Kabale was finished his tenure. He could not, give us a new constitution. And then the President Komon-Tok, regime came. And in 2017, they made an attempt to have a very comprehensive reform, under the Justice Kawan-led commission, and many of us contributed. In fact, to me, that was one of the most revolutionary steps that was taken by the government then to, at the very least, allow everybody, it's an 80-man committee that was set up, to have, at the very least, their say in this process. It was awesome. And even that commission ended up having a whole document before the president. And then a white paper was issued. Unfortunately, to me, that was the biggest mess of the then government, not giving us a constitution. All right. They came very close to having that solved, and they failed. They woefully rejected the recommendations. And today, see where we are. So I blame them squarely that was a missed opportunity. They could have given us a very powerful constitution because everybody sent in their papers. And you see the volume that came out, very, very powerful. Almost all the things were captured. And today, we have that as a draft, but rejected by the government. Now, effort is being made by this government since 2020 to have also a review. And, it's a good effort, but I have raised some few issues, and we spoke about this a couple of days ago when we met at the tripartite meeting. Our concern has been, again, the piecemeal approach in dealing with this, because it has to be a comprehensive approach. We don't have to be speaking a few things and just, if we want to have a whole constitutional review, let's go for it. If we want to have amendments, it's different. All right. But if you say you want to have a review, it has to be people-centered, open, and all-inclusive. And we must now have a say. If we want to adopt what is there already, the Justice Kawan's draft, let that be clear as well that that's what they are using. And then if we have further, things we want to put in there, then that's fine. But today we have a problem a little because not much openness is being seen in the process. That's my biggest, attack on the entire process. For example, we Legal Link were very, very vociferous, all right, about this constitutional review. And by then I was in the ACC. I submitted 5 papers to the Justice Kawan Commission, all right. So I love to be part of this, all right, and it's good to bring people who are experts, all right. I have a lot of expertise in constitutional law and human rights. That's the document that we want to be a part, and it's free. We have made it very clear that we don't want money. We want to just contribute to the process so that we have a good document that will stand the test of time. So my biggest attack has been we don't really know what is going on in terms of the review, whether we are going with the Justice Kawan's draft, or we are leaving that and we are taking a piecemeal of what perhaps the government wants to see change going forward. So I'm happy today that he's now in the seat and we'll be engaging with him so that at the very least we can come on board, and other CSOs and other think tank from the university, on constitutional law. There are many lecturers who have expertise on this that could be brought on board to see how they can look at comparative constitutional approaches, and then see how we can have the best of constitution going forward. So the idea is good, but let's open it more and let there be all-inclusive approach and all-society approach. That's how you do a constitution that will last and the test of time.
Deputy Minister, Barrister Rashid seemed to be saying that the process is a bit opaque, and clandestine at best. Why?
Well, so first, it's really to note that this process is not shrouded in secrecy. Definitely, one thing is clear. When processes take long, sometimes they get treated with suspicion. That is it's a natural instinct.
His opinion is more or less a suspicion.
I mean,
the reality.
And I think so. And the point is that I'd like to take some responsibility because, if we have really provided them with all the information that is necessary, that suspicion will not exist. But the point is that, so government has had like legislative priorities. Okay. You saw that in the first 5 years of His Excellency President Bio's government, there was a lot of effort to undertake certain reforms. Right? Legislative reforms, I mean. The government abolished the death penalty. The government enacted the GIWI Act. The government enacted land laws, that will reform the land governance system in this country. So those were all priorities. And then the plan was actually to make the constitutional review process a priority in this second term. Now, we are less than 1 year into His Excellency President Bio's second term, and this process has taken off already. So what I'm doing here right now is part of this openness. I have been around and, talking with various media outlets. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mohamed Lamin Tarawali, has been doing the same. And so we do not intend to stop. We intend to be very open about this process. We intend to make this as inclusive and as participatory as possible. Okay. But there are certain things that we need to note. Okay. One is that we all admit that the Justice Kawan process was very open. More than 10,000 public consultations. Airtime alone, really in figures, went over 20,000 hours of airtime. The number of position papers received by individuals, groups, government, ministries and departments and agencies as well, experts, unprecedented in this country's history. So that was public consultation. That was part of an effort of making this process as inclusive and participatory as possible. Now, where are we with this process? When these processes come to an end, like when you have the Constitutional Review Committee, they move to government. The process moves to government. Now, driving it, of course, becomes a political process. One thing I'd like to make clear is, I'm glad that my brother asked this question. This is not a new process. We are using the recommendations made by the Justice Kawan Constitutional Review Committee. Okay. The president has been very deliberate that we do not need to start a new process. That process was broadly inclusive. It was participatory. And you can say that the recommendations, a lot of them actually reflect the views and aspirations of the people of Sierra Leone. So that is what we are taking forward. Normally what happens is when a committee of that nature submits its report to government, Government issues a white paper. After that white paper, it moves to the Office of the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, who then works on the technical details of this process to be taken to Parliament. When they go to Parliament, two processes. Non-entrenched provisions are voted for by members of Parliament. Entrenched provisions go into a referendum. So that has been the step. And then, of course, one thing that is very clear, we intend to engage the public. We want to bring the public along. We want to make sure that this process is owned by members of the public. And then, of course, we're going to have a lot of discussions with civil society. For me, of course, one thing that my brothers in civil society can be assured of is that for processes like this, which are really, really important, I'll make sure that civil society folks are involved, and people in government share that view. The president shares that view, the vice president shares that view, the attorney general himself shares that view, that civil society partners should be engaged and brought along. We'll engage with political parties as well, so they know what has been put into a revised constitution. So that is how we'll approach this process.
DM, are we using a holistic approach, revising the whole constitution, or we are doing it by pockets?
So the point is that so the Justice Cowan report itself does not turn the 1991 Constitution completely upside down. For several of the recommendations, there are proposals to amend existing provisions in the Constitution. But of course, there are recommendations that will bring in new chapters. For example, the Cowan Constitutional Review Committee recommended that the Constitution has a separate chapter on citizenship. I'm glad you mentioned that a lot of the people who took part in the survey expressed a desire for decentralization and local governance. So there's a proposal that a revised constitution should have a separate chapter on local government. So these are all proposals that have been taken up. So yes, for those aspects, we'll definitely alter the face of the constitution, but then for some other proposals, they have to do with amendments to existing provisions. And so what we'll do is we will not do this in piecemeal. We will package all of the recommendations that have been accepted by government and lay them before Parliament. And of course, when they're in Parliament, there's also a chance for the public to engage, because parliamentarians are our elected representatives. So when we have these processes, whether we are amending a law or we are enacting a new legislation or revising the constitution, the process is never closed until enactment happens, because members of Parliament will debate, and then of course they will tweak things here and there. So there's still avenue for us to engage in that process.
A very potential area which has perhaps ignited heated discussions in the past, and those discussions are continuing, is reduction of executive powers. Now, the EU report 2023 from the Elections Observer team that were here made it clear that places like the ECSL, for instance, the judiciary, the police, the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, the ACC, and the military, and even the judges, yes, should be depoliticized. In essence, the powers to appoint and disappoint people into these offices should be removed from the president. Is that a thing that we're going to see?
So first, this government really believes that you don't need an overpowerful executive. You need an executive that operates within the ambits of checks and balances, separation of powers, as we said, an executive that is accountable to the people. And that is why we bring these processes to the people so that they have their say. But yes, there are recommendations to reduce some parts of the presidency, which this government has accepted. For example, under our current laws, as per the judgments of the Supreme Court, a president has been able to sack his vice president, which the Supreme Court deemed to be lawful. We can all disagree, but then that is what the Supreme Court said, based on the interpretation of the judges of the Constitution. But now you have a proposal by the Cowan Committee that the president should not have the powers to sack his vice president. Of course, there are conditions under which, circumstances under which the president or vice president can lose, can cease to serve under such certain circumstances. But the president cannot use his powers to sack the vice president. That is one of the proposals accepted in the government's white paper, that the president should not have those powers. We've had a country wherein for the longest time, the date for election, of course, within the 5-year term, the date for election is set by the president after consulting with the electoral commissioner. Now, the revised constitution is taking steps to take that power away from the president. And there's a proposal that there should be a provision in the constitution that sets a date for the conduct of general elections in this country. And so those are all not discretionary powers in the presidency
let's
anymore.
come back to the question I asked. Are you deliberate about addressing this? I mean, depoliticizing these institutions. Now, if you've been observing in Sierra Leone, we've been having, consistent problems when it comes to elections because of these same offices I just mentioned. The ECSL being one, which was quite vivid last year in 2023 when we had our presidential elections. A lot of contention, you understand, to fever pitch, because the laws, surrounding these offices are a bit, you understand, stiff and executive in nature. So people are arguing, you understand, and even experts are saying that if these offices are depoliticized, in a sense, removing the, the power from the president, to choose people who should lead these offices, things will get better. And that's what I'm asking. Is it possible that we're going to have this new constitution, you understanding, removing the power from the president, for choosing people to these offices?
All right, so here's the thing. So sometimes when you talk about reviewing these processes, when you talk about proposing reforms to certain laws, of course, it's always important to take stock of how these laws have applied in our country. But it's also always important to look at comparative practices in other countries that have made progress. And so you'll have to look at whether it's a normal practice in several other countries for these powers to be taken completely out of the hands of the president, or whether the practice is to keep these powers, but to regulate them in ways that the president does not exercise discretion when he uses such powers, such as, the appointment of a chief justice or the electoral commissioner.
Yes.
I am really trying to resist the temptation to go into other processes. But I'd like to say, when we talk about reforms broadly, when we want to reform our governance architecture broadly, there are always parallel processes. I don't, want to get into discussions on what, like, the tripartite committee is doing. As my brother mentioned, I serve on the committee. But then, when the president set up the tripartite committee, the idea was that the committee will make recommendations for reforms that will really alter in a positive way the way we conduct elections, the way we manage institutions that fit into our accountability framework. So these parallel processes exist, and these recommendations are things that the government will take very seriously.
Let me bring in Barrister Rashid Dumbuya. So what's your take around the discussion with reference to what we're discussing currently?
Yes, so the Deputy Minister alluded to perhaps a change they're looking at regarding the president powers to perhaps sack his vice president. So these are going to be things we may want to see, all right, how it's framed, because even in my view, the Constitution is clear about that issue. And we don't even really need to amend anything there. We all know that what happened where it's a political decision that was made. That's not a legal decision. The Constitution under 54(8) or so is very clear. It says the same way the president is removed from office, the same way the vice president should be removed from office. And the provisions are 50 and 51. I think 50 is on mental health also. 51 is for gross misconduct. So you must have those two factors, either one. And then there's a procedure on how, when it meets those factors, how you now can remove him. You do a whole, there's a whole judicial process. And then when he's found wanted, it is now referred to Parliament. And Parliament will now have to have a 2/3 majority before he is removed. That's how we remove our president and vice president. It's in the Constitution. That's why that decision did not, even meet the threshold to sleep more than a year when the ECOWAS had to clearly say that what they did was wrong. All right, so it's clear, it's there. All right, it's just that we try to find other ways to just circumvent, which don't make any sense.
You do not think the politicizers in these institutions?
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make now, if we have an open process, we'll make a case on these issues. That there's a provision there, all right, and let the court respect the provision. Presidents cannot remove their vice president without reference to Parliament. It's in the law, it's in the Constitution. Now, let me be clear about this. And I've always seen this the government on the issues of legislative reforms. All right, they've passed, among many other governments, one of the most radical reforms in terms of legislative, processes. And they've been very open to some extent in that regard. So, for example, I could recall on the Cyber Security and Crime Act. It was an open process. We all submitted papers and we are called to Parliament and we discussed, and that changed the dynamics of the first draft. So that's why it's important to make these things open, because had they not opened that process, we have one of the most draconian cybersecurity laws. But when it was open, we had to submit papers. It changed the whole dynamics, and the outcome and the outcome document, we saw that there were a lot of changes, and it met the threshold for even universal acceptance. Then they also came on the death penalty law. All right, we also spoke about it, and it was called, a copy of papers were submitted, and it was awesome in Parliament. Everybody was there debating it, and they saw the mistakes. 11th hour, that's when they saw the mistakes, and it was redefined again in the well of Parliament by our opinions and our submissions, and they all agreed that it was better they made this thing open, because the parliamentarians, largely many of them, are not lawyers. All right, and some of them, with all due respect, cannot read these things. All right, they don't have time for it. So legal experts, that's why I was even asking the other day that they need to have lawyers who serve as legal researchers for them. In progressive countries, that's what's happening. In the judges, the magistrates, and parliamentarians, they all have legal researchers because their work is about law and decisions. And you have to read to do these things and get to fact. Look at other judgments, how they're done in other areas, other legislations that are of similar nature, how comparative, and then see what is key and not needed. All right. So in that area, we give them, even recently, the Criminal Procedure Act, they again called for papers, and it was awesome. We went there. Myself and the Chief Justice and the AG, we had a very open discussion, all right, on some things. And there were things that came out from that one-on-one discussion. For example, now, there's a proposal in the CPA that says when somebody is arrested and detained, all right, by the police, remember the Constitution sets the time limit. From misdemeanors is 3 days, from felonies is 10 days, economic crimes 10 days. Now, the proposal is saying, the draft is saying, if those periods have elapsed and they cannot complete the investigation, the police can still come now to the court and ask for a further 15 days extension. So in our opinion, we say, that cannot be possible. All right, and I told the Chief Justice, you know why? Because the Constitution have set the time limit. A lesser law cannot say otherwise. Otherwise, it could conflict the Constitution, and by section 17115, to the extent it is inconsistent, it is null and void. So that opened the eyes of everybody to say, they should think of perhaps slowing that down. That's the beauty about allowing CSOs who are experts to be a part. Legal Link is specifically a legal think tank. So when legal reforms are being done and we are not part of the process, we are concerned. We are concerned because we do so objectively, and we took our time to do about 15 pages opinion, and that was welcomed by the AG and of course the Chief Justice. So here is also what we are saying. On the constitutional review, we have a decision to make. If we want to have a piecemeal approach, that's fine. But I believe if you call it a constitutional review, it has to be comprehensive. South Africa did this in 1996, and today the country is empowered. The courts are empowered because the constitution is very clear, and it was an all-society approach. Kenya did it in 2010. Today, the courts are empowered to even annul elections. The Constitution gave them that power. So let's not miss this opportunity. And I've said it severally. Any government that delivers on this, the nation will never forget them. This is a legacy you must be proud to live, and live it in ways that everybody will be happy with you. It's the beginning of our change. If we got it right in the Constitution, you will see everything flowing. And you know why we are struggling? Our Constitution is not clear. There are many ambiguous provisions there.
Many
The
have said
Constitution should be very clear.
contradictory.
Yes. So now people can interpret them in line with their political lens. Let's fix this law. It's the gun, it's the highest law. So any other bad law that exists will be exposed. All right. So, and you can get it right when you have an all society approach in dealing with this. That's the call we are making. It's not too late. And I'm happy he's on board now. He's an activist kind of person. He has a mentality on this. And I'm sure we're going to work together to have this document done. Let's don't wait. I'll say sometimes, let's don't wait till we get to Parliament before the call is made. It will be too late. We went there recently and I saw that they've got a lot to say. Oh, we don't go far now. No way we waste time again. But anyway, we want it before it is tabled in the Parliament. Table in Parliament. Let's have the draft exposed, and we all have a discussion around it, so we can expose these things as well.
Quickly, I know you want to respond to the bite from lawyer Rashid. Yes. But however, I want to draw your mind back to a recent weekly press briefing wherein you mentioned that these days when you talk about constitutional reform, people treat it with suspicion. Now, could you elaborate also, because you're talking about bringing people on board, making the process as open as it should be. Could you elaborate on why there is such widespread suspicion, and how do you get to a point wherein you would build trust and public confidence in the review process?
Well, thank you for that. I mean, yes, I said so. One, of course, say once constitutional review processes start, the consultations are public. But then, of course, driving the process to completion is a political process, right? A lot of the discussions take place within government, and then, of course, they go to Parliament. And as we've seen in other countries, constitutional review processes have been manipulated for other reasons. And so that is why sometimes people treat this with suspicion. I know that, when I got into this office and the Attorney General said, all right, let's take this process. We have directives from the president to take this process to completion. There were a lot of people, informed people, by the way, who started expressing concerns, who were treating it with suspicion, who thought the president was now about to use this process to give himself an advantage. And so that is why we have been very open. The president himself has spoken very publicly when he met with development partners recently on this constitutional review process. He made it very clear that unlike what we've seen in other countries, this review process is not meant to, one, be used to give himself a third term, noting that this is his final term as president. He has said so publicly. And so, we want to reiterate that so the public gets confidence in the process itself. Two, some people have said that there's a proposal in the recommendations or the revised constitution that want to table for an extension of the mandate of the presidency from 5 years to 7 years. That is also false. And the president has, been very clear about that. He has made that very clear that, those two things are not on the table. So that is the suspicion that I was referring to. Now, of course, how do we make sure that the public gets confidence in this? We have to be open about it. And, as my brother said, the proposals that will be tabled in Parliament through constitutional instruments, we are going to make those proposals very public. So, my brother, be rest assured that these proposals will come before you. You will see them. You will have the chance to engage. I'm really glad that he mentioned the Criminal Procedure Act, because it's one of those legislations. We started the review process in 2005. Now we have made a commitment that we want to take it to conclusion. And when we tabled in Parliament, yes, we spoke with members of the Parliament to open the process up. And when there was a call for position papers from various groups or experts, LegalLink responded on short notice. And I read their proposals, very instructive, and they were also in Parliament to have a discussion on that. That is the kind of debate that we want, and we want to make these debates really public, so that the public doesn't only hear what we say, but that they get a chance to also participate. That engenders public confidence.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Barrister Alpha Sise, Deputy Minister of Justice, and before him, you were listening to Barrister Rashid Dumbuya, who's the Executive Director, Legal League. At this juncture, the program, we're going for a short music break. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on the Africa Young Voices television. I am Victor Jones, and here with Elizabeth Momo. Our music break is titled Mama Salon, which is done for us by Mahmoud A. We'll be back.
Rocal SIM Copper Plus is an electronic mobile banking application which connects customers to their respective bank accounts through their mobile phones. With Rocal SIM Copper, you can do cash withdrawal, cash deposit, pay for goods, balance inquiry, transfer from RC bank account to another bank account, utility bills payment, buy airtime for GSM phone, request foreign exchange transactions. It is an application that can be used at any time and anywhere within the confines of Sierra Leone, thereby creating 24 hours access to your account. Rocal Commercial Bank, the bank of choice.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV television and listening to us on Radio 101.7 FM. And we still have in the studio Deputy Minister of Justice, Alpha Sise, and also Rashid Dumbuya, Executive Director of Legal League. However, we've been talking about the review of the 1991 Constitution. And so we have a lot of messages on our Facebook page, people adding their voices to the conversation, and would like to include these messages now. Starting off on my end, from Yusuf Mosige Sumar, he says, if President Bio's government is serious about reviewing the Constitution, let him consider Chapter 2 with great concern. The powers of the executive is enormous to an extent. It infringes the fundamental human rights. Chapter 3.
Victor Ako Mengot, the review should not be piecemeal. The Khan review was comprehensive, but there are still some gray areas. For instance, issues relating to executive powers, the control of MPs by their parties, appointment of the clerk of parliament by the president, not provision for independent candidates for presidential elections, and matters dealing with the appointment of judges, the IGP, and other heads of regulatory authorities.
And Usman Prince Suleiman Kavoni says, we need to vote for electoral commissioner, vote for chief justice, vote for minister of justice, vote for inspector general and ACC commissioner. We need to count all votes in real time as voting takes place in polling and sub-polling stations where all citizens would see results on a TV screen as results are counted. Moving ballot boxes is proven to be an issue surrounding our electioneering.
Brain spiking comments. Now, Yusuf Mosire Suma says the past government intentionally failed to review the Constitution because it suits their leadership comfort. Deputy Minister, are we hoping to see same?
Usman Prince Suleiman Kavoni again says, I would like to ask the Honorable Minister, what are we doing to minimize police brutality, abuse of power from certain class of people, such as judges, ministers, and people with caliber ordering the arrest of ordinary citizens without due process, citizens languishing in CID without taking them to court after 10 or 3 days by law, judges going against the rule of law, abusing their power to order the imprisonment of people because they have no better oversight to hold and reprimand them for their actions.
Usman Prince Suleiman Kavon, I would like to ask the Honorable Minister, what are we doing to minimize police brutality, abuse of power from certain class of people such as judges, ministers, and the people with caliber ordering the arrest of ordinary citizens without due process? Citizens languishing in CID without taking them to court after 10 or 3 days by law. Judges going against the rule of law, abusing their power to order the imprisonment of people because of they have no better oversight to halt and reprimand them for their action.
Yusuf Moseye Suma also says the past government intentionally failed to review the constitution because it suits their leadership's comfort. Deputy Minister, are we hoping to see same?
Swissman says, Minister, we want to know if there is any section that stated that when someone is corrupt, he or she should face full penalty of the law. And also tell us if there is any section in our constitution that supports on fair election.
Okay, I think that's all from my side.
I think the last one says, Emil Davis says, Mr. Minister, why did the past government refuse to review the constitution, and why is the constitution not clear who's to blame? All right, so I think these are, Elizabeth, do you have any more?
Yes. Osman Prince again asks a question, where are we now about citizenship?
Yeah, so these are the questions. Rashid, you want to start?
Yes, let me take a view of what was said. Somebody spoke about part 2 of our constitution, and also it's our concern. I think we must not miss this opportunity to put into context our chapter 2. Chapter 2 talks about socio-economic and cultural objectives. In fact, they're not rights under chapter 2. They are objectives, and they don't confer legal rights and are not justiciable, all right, in any court of law, according to section chapter 2, section 14. Now, I've made a case, and that paper also was submitted to Justice Cowan, that it's high time we started discussing about having socioeconomic rights guaranteed in our constitution. All right, for example, the right to food, the right to education, the right to health. All right, so I mean, there are of course pessimists and of course state officials who believe that it's a utopian dream and the resources are not just there to ensure these rights. I have argued to the contrary, and there are empirical evidence to show that we can, as a nation, guarantee these rights. So, for example, under the last government of Anisbai Koroma, an attempt was made to guarantee a socioeconomic right, a right to health, at the very least for pregnant women, lactating mothers, and under 5. A free healthcare initiative, that's a socioeconomic right. It's a right to health issue. Sierra Leone did not go into extinction. Our economy did not collapse because that effort was made. Now, roll back. Move forward. This government, under President Bio, attempted also to ensure socioeconomic rights by, at the very least, ensuring the right to education for primary and secondary school pupils. Sierra Leone did not go into extinction when it happened. So what nations and states should understand, when you ensure these rights, first, this, for example, education right is an empowerment right. When you educate somebody, so they were all here, we're empowered because an opportunity was given us to be educated. Yeah. So when you deprive it from anyone, you are ultimately killing that person because it will end up to be a menace to society. Now, the right to health is a survival right. If we don't have healthcare facilities in our nation, we will die. So when you ensure these rights, you are actually addressing the well-being, comprehensive well-being of the human being. That's what you are doing. All right, it's not civil political rights, the right to election. These are survival rights. So our country is not ready for this. And we have seen evidence that when they were ensured, nothing happened that was fatal. So what is scaring us? For example, now, why can't we have a discussion around the right to affordable housing? We have the land, we have the clay, we have the sand, we have stone, we have the military sitting there. We can use them to build low-cost housing in every district. And our people have a field day on housing issues in our country. So don't tell me these are not affordable things. So now let's get this in our constitution. Okay. So let's make it a right issue. So our government will now have float policies to at the very least start a conversation around these issues. Our people need water, they need food, they need housing, they need healthcare. All right, so it's enough of looking at just the civil and political rights and ignoring the social and economic rights. So I agree with that person holistically. Let me just take one more issue, all right, and then maybe I pass the baton to my minister. Now, there's an issue also being spoken about the issue of the power of the president on appointing commissioners. I like this point. So if I also have an opportunity to contribute, like the minister has alluded that it will happen. Now, I will put a paper on the powers of the president, particularly for appointing commissioners and the chief justice and judges. All right, because I know, and even the IG and the head of police, I know also that is conflicting and undermining their independence to some extent. So our proposal will be, we're not going to take him off completely from the exercise, but we're going to ensure that we place merit above the political considerations. So, for example, for judges, and it's happening in South Africa, these are things that are not, that's why the countries are progressing. They made deliberate effort to change and depower their presidency such that it will not become a dictator in the nation. So, for example, now I would say, if a judge, all right, wants to come to that office, he has to come to by call of application. So already we have the Judicial Service Commission. They can do an advertisement. So anybody can apply who is competent and who fits the requirements. All right. So let the president send his own man also to apply.
Do you think that's
right. No, I'm coming. Let me finish. So when that process is done, there will be an open interview. All right, where the media will be there, and they will have to get to the best three. They will tell us by the requirements and by the expertise, everything will be displayed. How they eliminate this person as against this person. Now, when they get to the best three, they will now send the best three to the president. All right, so choose among any one of them, and then Parliament approves. Now, here is why I have still maintained the president in the ball game. If you take the president off on everything, you will undermine state governance. He cannot have the power to function. He has to have the power to hold somebody to account. All right. So let him be in this appointment process, but let him be now at the latter end. We first put merit above his political account, because the first choice of the president usually is politics. All right. So let's put merit above the politics. When we're not satisfied with these three people, let him choose anyone. We now know they are all qualified and they fit for the purpose. And let me tell you the effect that will happen. When he gets to the throne, he is emboldened to resist his manipulation, because in the first place, he knew he came here by a merit process and not by his first choice of politics. That's the point. So they are not emboldened, because at the end of the day, they will be afraid that he will fire them again. All right. So let's also put a very stringent process on firing, all right, them. So we deal with the issue of recruitment and also how he removes them. A very tough process of removal.
Is that also part of the legal rash theories?
Yes.
Mr. Minister, before you respond to the question, you've heard what Rashid has just said. It's a nice analogy. It almost sounds like an Alice in Wonderland fantasy, but you think it's doable. This would be spectacular on your hand as a government if you achieve.
South Africa is doing it, by the way.
Well, so, one thing that I'll say is, when we sit in that room and discuss all of these progressive ideas, the leader of the pack on these progressive ideas is the president himself. The president has very progressive views about how we reform all of these institutions. So these are all, as we can say, a work in progress. And that is why in the president's big 5 game changers, which have been articulated to the public, there is that one having to do with a reform of the public sector. So in addition to the constitutional review process, there is massive investment in reforming the public sector. And when that blueprint comes out, definitely, there will be bold ideas. It will lay a bold vision on how we reform all of these institutions, how we also make them accountable. But I'd like to speak very briefly on the judiciary or the justice sector, because one, it relates to what, my brother and colleague has said.
Is that a response to the questions?
Yes, it also relates to something that came out of the questions that you just read out.
Okay.
So one of the things that we are working on right now is a justice sector reform strategy. It's going to be bold, it's going to be ambitious, it's also going to be realistic. We have had different generations of justice sector reform strategies in this country. We've had 4 generations. But we're taking stock and see how implementation has taken place in the context of those 4 generations. But now we're doing the 5th generation. But really is to note that since the war came to an end in 2002, Sierra Leone was very deliberate in making justice sector reform a post-war initiative. Now we're at a point, over 20 years later, take stock, and then develop the fifth generation justice sector reform strategy, which really has, strategic objectives. One, it will strengthen access to justice. It will improve case management and expedite justice delivery. It will strengthen human rights and the rule of law. And then it will strengthen service delivery for the justice sector institutions. At the end of the day, we want to see that citizens have faith in the justice delivery process in this country. So as part of that, whilst we're developing this strategy, there are of course several reforms taking place. Reform of the police sector, the correctional service architecture, the way we deliver justice itself, investment in the role of community paralegals. We are reforming certain laws. We are going to be very deliberate in how we decongest, our correctional service system. So these are all initiatives that are on the table, and we are of course making sure that civil society participation happens. Recently, the technical working group had a workshop on the reform of the strategy. When I didn't see Legal Link there, I actually brought it to my brother's attention that we want to make sure that they're involved in this process. So yes, we're working on this, and it will have an implementation plan. It will have a monitoring and evaluation plan as well. So we are learning and unlearning. We are making progress, taking step back. Seeing how we're doing. And laying ideas on the table on what we can do better.
All right, Mr. Minister, I want to take you up on something. So let's talk about Section 46(1). No person shall hold office as president for more than 2 terms of 5 years each, whether or not the term are consecutive. Now, I have heard, rumors, that 46 might be reviewed to extend the term of presidents in office. How realistic is that?
So that is misinformation.
Okay.
There is no proposal
of such nature.
So the life of the presidency will not be extended. I've also had the rumors that there are plans to amend Section 46 to extend the term of the presidency to 5 years. That is false. It will remain to 7 years rather. That is false. It will remain 5 years.
Okay.
That's there are plans to amend Section 46 in a way that allows someone to run for a 3rd term or even step out and be able to come back and run. No. Okay. Matter of fact, that one of the recommendations made by the Command Committee was to actually strengthen the language in Section 46 to be very clear that somebody will serve 2 terms, whether they're consecutive or not, and it will remain 5 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the conversation here this morning. To you, Lawyer Rashid, and of course, Deputy Minister Alpha. We've talked this morning about the review of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone. We're ending this first segment and going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue with the rest of the program.
Rokel SIM Copper Plus is an electronic mobile banking application which connects customers to their respective bank accounts through their mobile phones. With Rokel SIM Copper, you can do cash withdrawal, cash deposit, pay for goods, balance inquiry, transfer from RC bank account to another bank account, utility bills payment, buy airtime for GSM phone, request foreign exchange transactions. It is an application that can be used at any time and anywhere within the confines of Sierra Leone, thereby creating 24 hours access to your account. Rokel Commercial Bank, the bank of choice.
Feels good to see your face again. It's been a very crazy day. The joyous feeling in the air when rain falls on a sunny day. Happy, yeah. Let the stars, let the roll.
Enjoy life's little pleasures with Maltina. Maltina. Share happiness.
This is a different kind of energy. That's gang energy. With malt, ginseng, and vitamins. So recharge and take charge. Zach Energy Drink with malt. That's our kind of energy.
Well, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on the Africa Young Voices television, on radio as well. We are on 11.7 DSTV, channel 399. Do not forget, indeed, to continue to send in your comments and questions on any of the issues we're discussing on the program this morning to our Facebook page, AYV News. In our final segment, I think we do have we'll skip that issue for now and go over straight to the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, SLAJ. Of course, most of you that we are following would have observed indeed that yesterday the association celebrated its 53 years of dedication, integrity, and excellence in journalism. SLAJ, just to give you a history of it, was founded on 5th of June 1971, primarily to promote freedom of expression and of the press, to seek the welfare and protection of its membership, and to seek training and capacity building opportunities for its membership. So this morning, we are joined by the Secretary General of this association, who is Alhaji Manika Kamal. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome to Wake Up Sierra Leone.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure having you here. Have you been here before?
No, this is my first
This is your first time.
I've been in the radio, not on the television.
Oh, welcome. And as we say in Ghana, Akwaba. All right, indeed. So how does it feel to celebrate this major milestone?
Yeah, it feels good to celebrate 53 years of existence. As you rightly said, we've been through a lot over the years as an association, because SLAJ, as you rightly said, was founded by a small group of individuals who thought it fit that they should come together and seek the interest of their colleagues, because it was during the one-party era that SLAJ was formed, which was the dark ages of our histories in this nation. So we have few members, vibrant members, who thought it fit to come together, including all of them are late now, including the very first president, Madam Daisy Bona, who was also the first president of the West Africa Journalism Association. And then also late Mrs. Bernadette Cole, among others. They did their best to ensure that free speech, press freedom, and a conducive environment was in place during those dark ages for journalists, because by then it was no secret that there were so many cases of human rights violations, so many arrests were done. So SLAJ was working closely with the Sierra Leone Bar Association, because whenever a journalist says something, people from the security sector, particularly the police, will just barge into the offices and cut away with their equipment, arrest the journalists, take them to the criminal investigation department, wherein we have the Bar Association that will be there to represent the journalists. Moving forward, we also develop some structures in place because before now, Sludge was largely dominated by elders. You hardly see young journalists as we can see now in the association. And then by then, we don't know about too much of elections in Sludge. We just find somebody and then say you are the leader, and then he can appoint the secretary, the financial secretary, and the rest. But 23 years back, we have structures in Sludge where we can go into elections. We elect all our executive members. No one is appointed. Everybody is elected in the executive. We have the national and the regional executives. And then we also have other structures. Before I talk about the structure, let me also talk about the Sludge Electoral Commission that conducts the SLAGEC that conducts elections for all media bodies, including Sludge. Whenever we have elections, that body is responsible to conduct elections. At least a month before the election dates, everything is in place. We are done with the nomination and petition, everything, and then we are set for the elections. So which is why you hardly hear about any confrontation during our elections because we've handled everything before the date. We also have the Sludge discipline committee that sets the standards for our colleagues. We have the advisory committee, the advisory council that comprises of the previous presidents, including Honorable Ibi Kagbo, Omar Ofofana, Kelvin Lewis. Whenever we need their advice, they are always willing and ready to support us. We have so many things that we've achieved over the years that calls for celebration, which is why we are proud of celebrating 53 years of existence.
Also, in the midst of being proud, there are challenges as well.
Exactly.
So oftentimes the president currently and other senior members of Sludge have murmured, that the association doesn't receive its yearly government subvention in time, and in some cases, not being able to receive it at all. Which is a big problem. Where does the problem lie?
On the area of the subvention, let me start by saying that Sludge started receiving subvention sometimes in 2007, 2008. 2007, okay. Under the presidency, under the leadership of Omar Ofofana, we received once.
Okay.
And then since then, we only receive again after 2018. That was in 2019. We started receiving the subventions. And we are yet to receive for 2023 and 2024. We've already done the process, and the Minister of Information have assured us that it will be pretty soon the funds will be disbursed into our accounts. The challenges, that's fund.
Are those funds being paid by the government?
Yes, we've been receiving them, but we are yet to receive the 2023 and the 2024.
Okay.
But we've applied for them, and the process is ongoing. And the Minister of Information have assured us that pretty soon we will receive the funds for 2023 and 2024. On the area of challenges for us to receive those funds, sincerely speaking, we did not apply last year for the 2023 funds because we were pushing towards our AGM, and we don't want to use that money for the annual general meeting because that was how we used to operate. Because now, mind you, that money is public funds, and Sludge is being audited by the Audit Sierra Leone. So whenever we applied for the subvention, we submit a budget line, which we should follow whilst implementing the funds.
Okay.
So that was why we refused to request earlier in 2023, but we request for 2024. And we've made it clear to our members that once we receive those funds, they will be utilized for the required purposes so that there will be no challenges moving forward. But we've been assured that
Do you think reliance on government subvention as well could be a caveat for political control?
No, I don't believe that. Mind you, Sludge is just the umbrella body of the media. We don't have any control of any media house editorial policies. They have the free hands to do whatever they want to do with their editorial policy. I'm sure we've never called AYB to say, please don't go ahead with this publication or this broadcast. We've never called the management or either any other producer or editors for them to hold on to any stories, neither any newspaper or radio stations. We give them the free hand to do their job professionally. The money is for the smooth running of Sludge secretariat, not for distribution to media houses. And that money will not swayed Sludge away from our professional role. Well, as a journalist, it is my right to belong to any political party, my right to association. It is not wrong. But whilst executing my function as a journalist, I should draw the line. Professionalism comes first.
Do you think many have been drawing the line of recent? I mean, journalists in Sierra Leone, considering in light of recent events?
Oh yes,
looking at the landscape from a broader perspective.
But mind you, the media is toxic in Sierra Leone. In a sense, we have pro and anti-government media. It's not a secret. We have media houses that are supporting the government. We have media houses that are against the government, which is their right. Okay, but for us in Sludge, whatever we do it in the area of professionalism. If we see there's a need for us to support government in the area, in particular area, we do. Like for instance, when government was advocating for the non-permanent seats in Security Council in the UN, we issued out a notice supporting government. We did not support the SLPP, but we support Sierra Leone government in that line. Also, where government goes wrong, we critique them where necessary.
Let's look at the 53-year journey of Sludge now. What are the key milestones or successes the association is proud of?
Okay, let me start with the whole and the whole Sludge and the media in general play towards restoring peace and transformation to a multi-party system. Like I said earlier on, we're all aware about the one-party states during which Sludge was established. Sludge was doing its best together with the media houses, and towards the NPRC days, Sludge was also there. The media continued to operate. Our senior colleagues were arrested, including Paul Kamara and Honorable Benkago, among others. Olu Gordons, they were all around the place, writing articles, calling governments to account, and talking things about human rights abuse, among others. Some of the challenge and some of the successes I can outline of Sludge 53 years moving on. Like I said, we have the IRN platform since 1996 election. I'm not sure of any other platform that is popular than the IRN when it comes to election coverage. IRN has been consistent throughout the years, and they have been doing it professionally throughout the years. We are yet to receive any complaint from the members of the public saying that IRN is partisan whilst performing their job. Also, other media houses, they've been doing well, extremely well. Sludge as a body, we've been doing our own little bits as an association, supporting government where necessary and doing things that are important. For instance, during the Ebola fights, we launched the Yellow Ribbon campaign, which raised awareness among the public. People are aware about the Yellow Ribbon campaign. You see government officials and members of the public, senior citizens, they are all carrying the ban, which is one of the active roles Sludge play in combating the Ebola. Again, during the mudslide, you see the media was all over reporting, giving up-to-date information about the mudslide. During the COVID again, we see the role of Sludge. We see the role of the media. The media is also a frontline during times of emergency, not only the security or the health workers, also the media, because we are all over. There was a time I recalled a reporter from AYV who was reporting at the mortuary. He cried on here because what he saw, he can't hold back. That is what we are going through as a media. We've done so many things as media and Sludge, which worth celebrating. We've succeeded in convincing the government to repeal Part 5 of the 1965 Public Order Act that criminalizes libel and free speech. And the outcome of that repeal, when President Julius Maada was signing the documents at State House, he assured that he will support the media growth. And in 2022, we held the media conference, viability conference, wherein we have 10 outcomes. Among the outcomes of that conference is the IFPIN, that is the International Fund for Public Interest Media, which creates the platform for us to establish the National Fund for Public Interest Media. Already we received some funds from IFPIN, and we've established the secretariat, which is being run by the Media Reform Coordinating Group, MRCG. And we are waiting now for government to so to meet its own commitments in the aspect of counterpart funding. And about a month ago, the director of IFPIN of Africa and the Middle East, who is also a Sierra Leone, Mohamed Mahmoud Kamara, was in Sierra Leone, and he assured us that whatever amounts government committing to that fund, IFPIN is ready to match that account. So we are waiting for that.
What are the biggest challenges journalists face in Sierra Leone today, and how is SLAJ addressing these issues?
One of the biggest challenges we are facing is media poverty, and there is an argument in that area again, in the area of media poverty. It's no secret that more than 90% of the media houses in Sierra Leone are being owned by journalists, and they are always complaining of the advertising, because the lifeline of the media is advertising. Government is the biggest advertiser, and it's no secret that government is the biggest debtor also. And also the journalists, they are also complaining that their welfare is not good. It's nothing good to write home about. They are complaining that the media is not poor. It is only the media owners that are creating the poverty. So we have that argument between the journalists and the media owners. So which was why during the 2022 discussion with the IMC, before they presented their act in Parliament, there was a particular section in that act that makes it mandatory for any media house, before they renew your license, you must ensure that that media house is paying the minimum wage for all your reporters, and you are paying also their NACITs together with the NRE tax. If you fail to meet those requirements, they will not renew your license, because it's undone for journalists to work for 20, 25 years, and on your retirement, there's nothing for you to show to your family that this is what I achieved while serving as a journalist. Also, again, we are faced with this issue of threats. That is another challenge we are faced with. Before the June 2023 elections, the threat we are facing is directly from the politicians, cut across all political parties. When a journalist reports something that is against their interest, they will attack you using the social media, or they use the media also. After the June 2023 elections, the threat we are facing now is from the politicians and the political supporters. Just yesterday, we received a complaint from one of our colleagues, Thomas Dixon, wherein somebody by the name of Vandy is threatening him because of a tweet he made on X relating to the First Lady. The platform is there. If you are not okay with what the journalist puts out, go out and put your own side of the story. It is free media. There is no need for you to threaten the journalist for his work. There is no need for someone to describe me as a criminal just because I'm a journalist. You see, before now, the SLAJ executive, we hardly spent a week without visiting the criminal investigation department to beg for our colleagues. But after the repeal, yes, we do go there, but sometimes on courtesy call, and sometimes for some of our colleagues who the security apparatus use the Cybercrime Act to arrest, which is also another thing that is also a challenge for us, particularly clause 44, because there are so many words in that clause that are not explained in the act. It is left to the discretion of the police or the judges or magistrates to decide to interpret them. So we are concerned about that. I don't see any need for a journalist to send a text message to an individual requesting for an information. Maybe you text the person once, you text the person twice, and then you do it for the third time. That person goes to the side and reports you, and then they will invite you for that. Because we always advise our colleagues to check and double check before you broadcast or you report your stories. So these are some of the challenges we are facing in the media.
Well, Alhaji Manika Kamara continues to stay with us. He's the National Secretary General of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists. Well, at this particular juncture we've come to, we'll usher in our sport desk, and standing there for us this morning in our next studio is Fatma Sise. Good morning.
Rokel SIM Copper Plus is an electronic mobile banking application which connects customers to their respective bank accounts through their mobile phones. With Rokel SIM Copper, you can do cash withdrawal, cash deposit, pay for goods, balance inquiry, transfer from RC bank account to another bank account, utility bills payment, buy airtime for GSM phone, request foreign exchange transactions. It is an application that can be used at any time and anywhere.
ما قصر.
All right, well, good morning, Victor, once again. Good morning, Elizabeth, our guest in the studio, to our viewers and listeners as well. Well, in sports yesterday, we saw Sierra Leone triumph over Djibouti with a 2-1. In sports yesterday, we saw Sierra Leone triumph over Djibouti with a 2-1 victory at El Jadida Stadium in Morocco, securing a crucial 3 points in the 2026 FIFA World Cup CAF qualifiers. Curtis Davis, crucial 3 points in the 2026 FIFA World Cup CAF qualifiers. Curtis Davis made history by scoring in the 12th minute, becoming the oldest international debutant to net a goal in the qualifiers. Djibouti's Gabriel Datse equalized from the penalty spot, but Augustus Cargo's decisive goal in the 55th minute clinched the win for Sierra Leone. Let's take a look at the highlight.
لا شوف الكرة اللي لعبت بعد ذلك والمتابعة الأخيرة، وسجل ديفيدز الهدف الأول للمنتخب السيراليوني. هدف جميل ورائع، مراقبة وخطأ دفاعي كلف الهدف الأول واستحق. كرة أمامية أقرب إلى كامارا، خروج خاطئ منتخب جيبوتي. الله، محمد كامارا حارس المرمى سيراليون، المدافع ما قصر، عاد سوى بلوك سليم وصحيح. المدافع أدى دور حارس المرمى. والتنفيذ أبادي، عاد تنفيذ وضعها أبادي، وضعها على يسار كامارا. شوف جابريل أبادي وضع كرة، جابريل أبادي وضع كرة، اللاعب اللي يلعب في منتصف الملعب. يا سلام، شوف اللاعب المميز الرائع والسريع، عدى بكل مهارة، واللاعب هو أغسطس لعب كرة رائعة وسكنت في حلق المرمى، معلنة هدف ثاني يا أغسطس، ولعب كرة.
Currently, Leicesters are fourth in Group A with 4 points and are set to face Burkina Faso on June 10th in Bamako, Mali. To another story, as the CAF Diploma and Administrative courses continue at the Sierra Leone Football Association Academy in Kintom, the aim is to enhance capacity building and enrich the involvement of female coaches and administrators in football. CAF female coaching instructor Majida Natanda underscores the importance of creating a conducive atmosphere for players when coaching and for participants in both the coaching and administrative courses. She further speaks on the progress of the training, highlighting its significance to the path and passion they have chosen. Well, that's all for sports for Wake Up Sierra Leone. Back to you, Victor.
If you want to subscribe to the TPP Leone YouTube page on your phone, click and open the YouTube app. Now the search box, just type Komon-Tok and click enter. When the page displays, look at the top middle and click the subscribe button. Subscribe. And not tap the click the bell close to the subscribe button and select all. As you don't subscribe, so anytime we go live, you go be among the first people then where they get notification. If you want subscribe to the TPP Lyon YouTube page na your phone, click and open the YouTube app. Now the search box, just type Komon-Tok and click enter. When the page display, look na the top middle and click the subscribe button. Subscribe. And not tap the click the bell close to the subscribe button and select all. As you don't subscribe so, anytime we go live, you go be among the first people them where they get notification. If you want subscribe to the TPP Lyon YouTube page na your phone, click and open the YouTube app. Now the search box, just type Komon-Tok and click enter. When the page display, look na the top middle and click the subscribe button. Subscribe. And not tap the click the bell close to the subscribe button and select all. As you don't subscribe so, anytime we go live, you go be among the first people them where they get notification.